economic growth and retain jobs. Where is technology in that agenda? I'll quote Barack Obama, who says, information technology, indeed, access to broadband communications is the single most strategic enabler of economic growth in the 21st century. He made the analogy to electricity in driving the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we still have the power of challenge of power, but we need to start thinking about technology and what role it's going to play. The other intervention I was going to make was the need for sustainable development. It requires laws to be put in place by our legislature to drive that. Why is that so? We look at other economies and look at the developments they've made, and we can cite a few examples in ICT. Alibaba did not happen in China because there were no laws to protect them. Indeed, Alibaba is a direct result of the laws that the Chinese government had in protecting indigenous industry and indigenous information. The same with the evolution of data centers, and we've seen what's been going on with Edward Snowden in terms of managing access to data globally. Up until about 10 years ago, if you shopped domestically in the US online, you did not pay sales tax, and that was facilitated by an act of Congress directly to drive the growth of that industry. We talk a lot about corruption and corruption in the executive arm. Business is constantly having to go to the executive arm for permits, for approvals, for different things, where the laws and the processes are just not clear. And having laws in place that can be enforced, that can move from administration to administration, that cannot be easily unwound by the discretion of that official who can make or break, would truly help our businesses grow and prosper. So looking at the legislation and what they need to do for businesses, those are two areas. But I'd also like to pose a question to the Deputy Speaker in terms of the keynote speech that was given and what he said about oversight. I think I'm a little challenged by that presentation because it mentioned the executive not having clear policies and thereby the legislature not being able to enforce or effectively perform that oversight function. I mean, we also happen to watch the US Congress, and thanks to C-SPAN and CNN and the internet, we see a lot of what is going on with the various parties there and accountability. Why is our legislature not able to hold them accountable if they bring a project that's $1 billion? It's a 4-year duration. In the first year, they spend $100 million. In the second year, they spend $50 million. It's meant to benefit your constituency, and they're not making progress in delivering the results. Why are you not vetoing the next thing they bring and say, we're not going to pass that until you deliver this critical project? So in terms of that oversight responsibility, truly, I don't want to hold brief for the executive, but I think our legislature should be able to hold the executive accountable for completion of projects that are going to deliver benefits to the Nigerian population. The second thing is the lack of policy or legislative agenda for the House or the legislature to work with. On the other hand, we think all of the legislatures are there in Nigeria on the platform of a political party. That party likewise had a manifesto, and if our legislatures happen to be in the opposition, then perhaps they have a superior argument as to what the agenda should be. Why are our legislatures not able to bring forth some of those policy ideas and initiatives and make them the agenda and subject them to debate? I think those are some of the expectations we have of the legislature. I think there are challenges with the executive, and they were here earlier this morning having that discussion. But I think we would like to see a higher level of performance in terms of driving through the economic change we need from our legislature as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Funke. Very timely, very much within time. May I invite Sui Ighodalo?
Thank you very much, Clement. Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Is it on now? Okay, thank you. Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Obatudeko, good afternoon or good evening. We've had a very long day, but I can't resist talking a bit over the time you've allotted me, because there are many things that are jumping at us, and there are many things that we need to know. In getting ready for today, I spoke with many of my friends who are in the National Assembly, and each one, without fail, said if there's a failure of adopting a legislative agenda, it's the failure of the executive. So it kind of goes back to what the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker has said and what Muda said. But I think we need to very carefully understand that the Nigerian public believe that the responsibility for lawmaking is vested in the National Assembly. And we're not very concerned about the nuances of who instigates the legislative agenda. Clement spoke about having an Attorney General that instigates the process of the legislative agenda. That's true. But then I'll come back to something Funke was saying about we have a majority of the ruling party in the National Assembly. If we have a majority of the ruling party in the National Assembly, then we'd all expect that it'll be easier for the legislature and the executive to sit together and determine an agenda for the benefit of the Nigerian people. We're in an emergency situation, and I know that the Chief Executive of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group has promised both the Speaker and the Senate President that will provide them with proceedings of this summit. But I want to particularly commit to the Deputy Speaker, and also that you please pass it on to his brothers in the Senate. We're a bit disappointed that it didn't show, because we moved this session to this time for them. But I understand they're doing a major national assignment of screening new ministers. But I guess they could have sent one or two representatives, and I thank the members of the House who made it here. Thank you very much. But I think we need to let them know that we're going to send to them the report of the opening ceremony, particularly the presentations that were made by Tokpe and the presentation that was made by Kunle, and I'll talk a bit about it. We're also going to send to them particularly the report of the session on competitiveness yesterday and the session this morning on the reform on institutions, particularly the Georgia case study. And when they see all of that, and if please they will take time to look at it, they'll understand where we, the people of Nigeria, are going. We're in an emergency situation. From the presentations we've had, we're going into a recession. And it's likely that if we're not careful, we'll go into a slump. If we go into a slump, to come out of the slump will take us maybe 4 years. The pure economists, some even say it'll be as long as 5 years. So it's time both those who make laws and those who should instigate the process of making laws come together and start thinking of how do we now start working for the people of Nigeria to make laws, remove laws, or amend laws for the benefit of the greater good of the people of Nigeria. so that we don't go in the direction that we shouldn't. Easily, Kunle's presentation yesterday showed that we were at a point in the economic cycle curve that if we didn't start reversing it very quickly, by next quarter, we'll probably be in recession. And thereafter, we'll start sliding very fast into a slump. What can the National Assembly do immediately? And then what should...
You're watching the day 2 of the National Economic Summit holding at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja, brought to you live from Channels Television. In continuation of our series of programs, we'll be moving on now to News Track, coming to you in a couple of minutes from now.
This has been a live Channels Television event.